My wife cheated on me with our lawyer during the divorce over $200, $0 in inheritance. Then she stole the house and filed a false police report. Now I'm fighting to get everything back. But I found out she's been lying about everything for years. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating, especially not after 10 years of marriage. But I did. And what I found out turned my whole world upside down. It all started with little things. She'd suddenly be secretive about her phone, hide her texts, and get defensive whenever I questioned her about her whereabouts. At first, I brushed it off as stress or work stuff. She was always busy, always on her phone, and I figured she just didn't want to talk about her day. But then I started noticing the little lies. She'd claim she was at the gym, but I'd see her car parked outside her friend Lisa's house late at night. She'd say she was working late, but her social media showed she was out with some guy named Jake. That's when it hit me. Something was going on. One night I decided to follow her. I needed to know the truth. I waited until she left, then slipped out after her. She went straight to a cheap motel on the edge of town. I parked a few blocks away, hiding behind some bushes, and watched her go inside. That's when I saw her with a man I didn't recognize, tall, muscular, and smiling in a way I'd never seen her smile at me. They were kissing, touching, and clearly doing more than just talking. I felt my stomach tighten, my blood boil. I couldn't believe she'd been lying to my face for months, maybe even years. The woman I thought I knew was sleeping with our lawyer, Marcus, during our divorce, no less. I'd hired him to help with the inheritance case, $200 in cash, a house we both owned, and a messy divorce process that was supposed to be straightforward. Instead, I got betrayal on a scale I never imagined. I stayed there for a while, watching her and Marcus, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. I kept telling myself I'd confront her tomorrow, but I knew I couldn't let this slide. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a sick feeling in my stomach. I went through her phone, her emails, her social media. I found messages, flirty texts, explicit photos, plans to meet up again. She was lying to my face, telling me she loved me, pretending everything was fine. Meanwhile, she was screwing our lawyer, plotting to take everything I'd worked for, and probably already started the process of stealing the house. That's when I decided I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I needed to know what else she'd lied about. I started digging into her bank accounts, her emails, her phone records. That's when I uncovered the full extent of her deception. She'd been lying about her money, her affairs, everything. She'd even filed a false police report claiming I was abusive just to throw me off and buy herself more time. I was furious. How could she do this? How could she betray me so thoroughly? I had trusted her with my life, my money, my future. And now I was faced with the reality that she'd been lying about everything for years. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was gone. In her place was someone I didn't recognize, selfish, manipulative, and completely unfaithful. I knew I had to do something. I had to fight back, not just for my money, but for my dignity. After I uncovered everything, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind was racing, trying to process how someone I thought I knew could betray me so completely. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair with Marcus. It was the lies, the manipulation, the theft of the house, and the false police report. I couldn't believe I had been so blind for so long. She had been lying about her work, about her feelings, about her intentions. It was like she had woven this entire web of deception around me, and I was the fool caught in it. The first thing I did was confront her. I found her in the kitchen, pretending to be innocent, acting like everything was normal. I laid out everything I'd discovered, texts, emails, the photos. She tried to deny it at first, giving me that classic, "You're crazy, you're overreacting" line. She said Marcus was just a friend, that I was paranoid. She told me I was imagining things, that I was jealous and insecure, but I wasn't buying it. I knew the truth. I knew she had been lying to my face for years, and now I had proof. The look in her eyes was pure contempt, like she thought she could just lie her way out of everything, like she was untouchable. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and disappointment. Part of me wanted to break down, part of me wanted to scream, but I kept my composure. I told her that I knew everything, and that I was done playing her games. I told her I'd be contacting a lawyer and that I was going to fight for what was mine, our house, the inheritance, everything she'd tried to steal from me. She smirked, like she was already planning her next move. That's when I realized how dangerous she truly was. Over the next few days, I started making plans. I reached out to a lawyer I trusted, someone who specialized in property and inheritance cases. I gathered all the evidence I had: texts, emails, bank statements, even her false police report. I wanted to be prepared for whatever she threw at me. I also hired a private investigator to dig into her activities further, just in case there was more she was hiding. Every new piece of information made my blood boil even more. She'd been lying about her income, about her relationship with Marcus, about her plans to take everything from me. She'd been living a double life, and I'd been blind to it. The worst part was realizing how much she'd been manipulating the situation. She'd lied to her friends and family, told them I was abusive or unstable so they turn against me. She'd even gone as far as filing that false police report, trying to get me arrested or at least discredit me. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone to cover her tracks. I felt betrayed on every level, emotionally, financially, legally. I was furious that she'd used me, lied to me, and then tried to steal my future. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to fight, not just for the house or the money, but for my dignity and my sanity. The days that followed were a whirlwind of planning and anger. I couldn't sleep much, constantly thinking about what she'd done and what I needed to do next. I knew I had to be strategic. I couldn't just storm in and accuse her without proof. I had to let the legal process work in my favor. I also started thinking about how I'd rebuild my life after this. It was clear she was a manipulative, self-absorbed person who only cared about herself. I couldn't trust her anymore, not with my heart, not with my money, not with my future. Some nights, I'd sit alone, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. The betrayal burned inside me like a hot coal. I felt helpless at first, but I knew I had to stand up and fight back. This wasn't just about the house or the inheritance. It was about justice, about making sure she didn't get away with destroying everything I'd worked for. I was determined to set things straight, even if it meant going to war. I'd been blindsided, yes, but I wasn't going down without a fight. The legal battle started almost immediately after I handed over all my evidence to my lawyer. Honestly, it was a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief that I finally had a shot at getting back what she had stolen, but dread at how deep her lies went and how much more damage she could still cause. Her trying to claim I was abusive, filing that false police report, was just part of her bigger game to discredit me and buy herself more time. She thought she could manipulate the system, just like she manipulated me for years. I didn't hold back. I hired a private investigator to confirm her activities, and I started digging into her financials myself. Turns out she'd been draining accounts, funneling money into secret accounts, and even trying to hide her affair with Marcus. She'd gone as far as forging documents, trying to make it look like she owned the house outright, even though I was listed on the deed. I couldn't believe the extent of her lies. It was like she thought she was invincible, untouchable. But I had enough evidence now to make her pay. Meanwhile, she was busy spinning her web of lies. She told friends she was a victim, that I was abusive and controlling. She claimed I was jealous, that I'd always been suspicious of her. She played the victim card hard, trying to turn everyone against me. I'd see her at social gatherings, acting innocent, smiling sweetly while behind the scenes she was scheming. It made me sick. The woman I'd loved and trusted had become a master manipulator, and I was just another pawn in her game. The court hearings were a nightmare. She showed up with her high-priced lawyer trying to twist the story. She accused me of all sorts of nonsense, saying I was violent, unstable, that I'd been cheating on her, which was laughable considering I'd caught her cheating first. I had to produce every piece of evidence I had, and even then she kept throwing curveballs. She brought in her own witnesses, friends she'd paid off or coerced to paint her version of events. It was exhausting, but I knew I couldn't back down. I needed to get my house, the inheritance, and clear my name. Throughout all this, I kept asking myself how she could be so cold, so calculating. She lied about her income, about her feelings, about everything. I found out she'd been cheating on me for years, not just with Marcus, but with others too. She'd also been secretly draining our joint accounts, siphoning off money for her own use. The worst part, she lied about the inheritance, claiming she was entitled to half of everything, even though she knew I'd inherited that money and the house legally. She was trying to steal my entire future just because she wanted more money and power. The emotional toll was brutal. Sometimes I'd lie awake wondering how I missed all of this. How did I not see the signs? How did I trust her for so long? I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This was her true nature: selfish, manipulative, ruthless. I realized I had to focus on moving forward, on reclaiming what was mine, and on healing from this betrayal. I couldn't change what she'd done, but I could control what I did next. Now, I'm in the thick of the legal fight, trying to get the house back and fighting her false claims. I've hired investigators, lawyers, and experts to help me build a solid case. I'm not giving up, even though part of me still feels numb from everything. Every day I remind myself that I deserve better, deserve honesty, respect, and a future free of her lies. I know I won't forget what she did, but I also know I'll come out of this stronger, because the truth always comes out in the end, and I refuse to let her win. The months that followed were a blur of court dates, depositions, and endless paperwork. Every time I thought I was making progress, she'd throw some new curveball, some fabricated story, some new lie to try and derail me. She hired her own team of lawyers, of course, and her friends started appearing at court, parroting her version of events. She was good at playing the victim, acting innocent and fragile even though I knew better. I saw through her act. I knew her manipulations all too well now. One of the most shocking moments came during a deposition when I learned she'd lied about her finances. She claimed she had no other income besides what she told me, no secret accounts, no hidden money. But her bank statements showed otherwise. She'd been funneling money into offshore accounts, trying to hide her assets. That was the moment I realized how deep her deception went. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was trying to steal everything, including the house, the inheritance, and whatever else she could get her hands on. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her past. I found out she'd been lying about her childhood, about her career, even her education. She claimed she'd gone to college, but I discovered she'd dropped out after a year. She'd always been a good liar, convincing everyone she was someone she was. And the worst part, she'd been lying to me all along, pretending to be this perfect wife, when in reality she was a manipulative, selfish person who saw me as her next target for financial gain. Her lies extended into her personal life too. I found messages between her and Marcus where they discussed how she wanted to get rid of me once she got what she wanted. They talked about the plan to take the house and the money and how she'd make sure I was out of the picture. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. She'd been planning this for months, maybe even years. All those nights I thought she was working late or at the gym, she was secretly meeting Marcus, plotting her next move. The emotional toll was intense. I felt betrayed, not just by her actions, but by how long I'd ignored the signs. I kept asking myself how I could have been so stupid, so trusting. There were moments I just broke down, crying alone in my apartment, feeling like I'd lost everything that mattered. I thought about giving up, about walking away from the fight, but deep down I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. Not after everything. I had to fight for my rights, for my dignity, for what she was trying to steal. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. It was like peeling back layers of a lie and finding out she'd been living a double life for years. She'd lied about her past, about her intentions, about her feelings. She manipulated our friends and family, told lies to make herself look innocent while secretly planning her escape with the house and inheritance. She was a master at deception, and I'd been her target all along. It was a hard pill to swallow, realizing I'd been played for a fool. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to stay strong, keep fighting, and expose her for who she really was. In the midst of all this chaos, I started to see the pattern, how she used lies and manipulation as her weapons. She'd always been bitchy, quick to blame others, and never took responsibility for anything. Her lies about her money, her feelings, her intentions, they all pointed to one thing: she was only out for herself. And now I was the one paying the price for her greed and deception. But I refused to let her dictate my future. I had the evidence, I had the law, and I was determined to take back what was rightfully mine. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew I couldn't let her win, not after everything she'd done. By the time we reached the final hearings, I was exhausted but still resolute. Every day felt like a battle, fighting her lies, countering her stories, and trying to keep my emotions in check. She continued to play the victim, crying in court, acting fragile and helpless. But I knew better. I knew she was calculating, manipulative, and ruthless. She lied about everything, and now she was desperately trying to hold onto her last shred of control, her false image of innocence. During one of the hearings, her lawyer tried to argue that I was an unstable, jealous man who was just trying to ruin her life. I sat there listening, feeling a mixture of rage and frustration. I had all the evidence, proof of her affair, her secret accounts, her false police report, her lies about the inheritance. I felt a surge of confidence knowing I had the truth on my side. I took the stand and laid everything out piece by piece, showing how she'd systematically lied, manipulated, and stolen from me. I saw her face tighten, her eyes narrowing as I exposed her for what she really was: a scheming, selfish woman willing to do anything for money. The judge listened carefully, and I could tell he was skeptical of her stories. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, weighing the evidence against her claims. It was a tense moment, but I felt a strange sense of relief. I knew I was finally making progress. I was fighting not just for the house and inheritance, but for my dignity and reputation. I realized that her lies had been her armor, and now that I was exposing her, she was losing her grip. But even as I gained ground legally, the emotional scars lingered. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all the signs for so long. How could she have lied to me for years, played me like a fool? I kept seeing her smiling, acting innocent, while behind my back she was sleeping with Marcus and plotting her escape. The pain was sharp, but I knew I had to keep fighting. I had to stay strong, not just for myself, but for the truth. Throughout this process, I also learned something about myself. I was stronger than I thought. I'd been hurt, yes, but I refused to let her define me. I refused to let her win. I was determined to reclaim what was mine, to restore my life and my sanity. I started to see that this was more than just a legal battle. It was a fight for my future, my integrity, and my dignity. I knew she wouldn't give up easily, but I was prepared. I'd spent months gathering evidence, building my case, and now I was finally seeing the results. I didn't know exactly how everything was going to turn out, but I knew one thing: I was not going to let her get away with it. I was going to fight to the bitter end and make sure she paid for everything she'd done. After everything, the court finally made its ruling. It wasn't exactly what I'd hoped for. She managed to drag it out longer than I thought possible, twisting the story and trying to turn the judge against me. But in the end, the evidence spoke for itself. The judge ordered her to return the house, to pay back the stolen inheritance, and to drop all false claims against me. It was a long, hard-fought victory, and honestly, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I'd won the legal battle, but the emotional damage still lingered. Seeing her face when the verdict was read was something I won't forget. She looked angry, betrayed, and defeated all at once. Her lies had finally unraveled, and her manipulations had been exposed in front of everyone. She tried to argue, to weasel her way out, but the judge wasn't having it. The truth had come out, and her lies had been laid bare. She was ordered to vacate the house within 30 days, and she had to pay back every cent of the inheritance she'd stolen. It was a bitter victory, but a victory nonetheless. In the aftermath, I started the difficult process of rebuilding. I moved into a new place, cut ties with most of her friends and family, and began focusing on myself. The whole experience changed me, made me more cautious, more aware of how deeply someone can lie and manipulate. I learned to trust my instincts again, and I vowed never to let anyone hurt me like that again. I also realized how important it is to document everything, to keep records, and to never assume someone's actions are what they seem on the surface. Looking back, I see how much I've grown from this ordeal. The betrayal was brutal, but it forced me to confront a side of myself I never knew, strength I didn't think I had. I learned that even in the darkest moments, there's a flicker of hope, a chance to stand up and fight for what's right. I also learned that some people are just bad, selfish, manipulative, and willing to lie, cheat, and steal to get what they want. And the only way to deal with that is to be vigilant, stay true to yourself, and never let anyone take away your dignity. This experience has left scars, sure, but it's also given me clarity. I see now how important honesty and respect are in a relationship. I see how dangerous lies can be, and I know I'll never ignore the signs again. Most importantly, I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought, strong enough to fight for myself, to stand up against betrayal, and to rebuild after everything. Life will throw curveballs, but I'm ready for whatever comes next. I've lost a wife, yes, but I've gained a new sense of resilience and self-awareness that I'll carry with me forever.